Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the SonicPlayPeopleSexy.net Let's Play Apple Tarot competition. We're now in week number 3, and clearly all the contestants, myself included, were doing far too well up to this point, because our glorious host Zeloz has stepped in and made things a little more difficult I should say, by changing up the gimmick somewhat. So the word on the card this week is fabulous, but it's not quite that simple. Because Zeloz, the cheeky little monkey, went ahead and flipped the card upside down. So now our concept is reverse of fabulous. And that's kind of hard to interpret. It's kind of like in tarot card reading, where if you flip the card upside down, it means something different to how the card would mean flip the right way up. But that new meaning is not necessarily the complete opposite of the old one, if you catch my drift. So what did this mean? It meant I could play a game that is the opposite of fabulous, i.e. objectively terrible. But I decided against that because that would be boring to both myself and my audience, and of course most importantly of all, the judges. So instead I elected to play a game that could have been fabulous, but ultimately stopped short of the mark for whatever reason, and that game is Sonic 3D for the Sega Mega Drive. Co-developed by Sonic Team and Traveler's Tales, released in 1996 for the Mega Drive, it also came out for the Sega Saturn about 2 weeks after the Mega Drive version, and came out for Windows PC about a year after the Saturn version was first released. And this is a weird game within the Sonic franchise. It's kind of an anomaly, in fact it's very much an anomaly. It combines the classic gameplay elements that we all know and love. Collecting 100 rings gets you an extra life. You need 50 rings to enter a special stage. If you beat the special stage, you get a Chaos Emerald, and you need all 7 Chaos Emeralds in order to access the final level of the game and get the game's true ending. That's all present and correct. But it combines that with gameplay elements that we never saw before, and quite frankly never saw again, and for good reason. And chief amongst those new gameplay elements are these little birds orbiting around Sonic. These are the Flickies, who actually appear in the title of the game, because this game is known as Sonic 3D Blast in North America, but in certain parts of Europe it's called Sonic 3D Flickies Island. And these birds are the Flickies, who first appeared in the game Flicky. There are 5 Flickies in each area of the game. The game is split into 7 worlds, plus a final fight at the end of the game that you can only access with the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Each world is divided into 3 acts. The first 2 acts are collecting Flickies, and the final act of each world is just a boss fight. And each act is split further into various areas. This particular act, Act 1 of Green Grove Zone, is split into 2 areas, but other parts of the game are split into 3, and I think later on there are actually 4 areas. And to progress in each area you need to find 5 Flickies, which you get by breaking open the badniks, the various enemies at each stage, and collecting the birds that pop out. A side quest you can do, so to speak, is to find Tails and Knuckles who are hiding on each level. If you give them all your rings, minimum of 50, they will transport you to a special stage. Now, interestingly, each version of the game has a slightly different interpretation of the special stage. The Mega Drive version, the version I am most familiar with, that's the one I'm playing today, has you traversing a flat bridge, collecting as many rings as you can, with 3D rendered sprites. The Sega Saturn version has you on a half-pipe-like structure similar to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 special stages with polygonal graphics. And the PC version is pretty much the same as the Saturn version, except that the polygonal graphics are gone, replaced with the 3D rendered sprites from the Mega Drive version. But other than those little aesthetic differences, the core gameplay remains absolutely the same. You need to avoid these spike balls on the ground, collect enough rings to pass through those flags, 50, 100, and 150 respectively, and if you've done that successfully, you'll get a Chaos Emerald, do this 7 times, and you'll have all the Chaos Emeralds, and you can go and access the final level of the game. Now, one thing that's different in this game with the special stages is that if you go to them, you lose every single ring, and also your shields that you've collected. But the good thing is you can easily get them back, because going to a special stage completely resets the level. All the rings, all the item boxes, those Sonic heads that you get on springs that get you to continue if you collect enough of them, they're all back. And also, going to that particular special stage did actually put me at a further part of the level. But it's okay, because once you've gone through a gold ring with the Flickies the first time, it acts as a warp, and therefore you can access later parts of the level much, much quicker. So I do like that they try and cut back on the backtracking, or speed up the backtracking I should say, as much as possible. Unfortunately, that doesn't save the core problems of the gameplay. Case in point, the controls. They are not very good. And it's kind of interesting that for a game entitled Sonic 3D, this isn't actually what I would call true 3D. Yes, the graphics are three-dimensional, and they are good to look at that. I mean, this game came out in 1996, and graphics-wise, it blew everybody away. It looks gorgeous. I'm not disputing that. But it's not a 3D perspective. It's 3D graphics on a 2D perspective. What some people would like to refer to as 2.5D. It's an isometric perspective that you see in games like Snake, Rattle and Roll, which coincidentally is another game I played for an LP contest way back in the day, and enjoyed quite a bit. And because of the controls, I often find that I don't jump on the enemies, I like to spin dash into them. Now, in most Sonic games, when you're running around really fast, you press down, you can do a spin dash. You obviously can't do that on the 2.5D plane here, because that would just move you down towards the southern part of the screen. So instead, you do it by moving and then pressing the button to spin dash, which is the B button on default, I believe. I have kind of moved my controller configuration around to best suit me, but I believe jump is A and B is spin dash by default. I think C is possibly spin dash or jump. I don't actually know. So I find the best way to take care of these badniks is to spin dash into them while moving. But the controls are just so damn slippy, it's really hard to control, and if the game controlled better, I would have no hesitation in recommending people to play this. But because of the controls of one other complaint I have about this, I really can't. It's kind of the black sheep of the Sonic family, which is kind of strange to say about a series that has produced quite a few black sheeps. The Sonic franchise, if you think about it, has really divided opinion ever since it moved out of the 2D games. I mean, most people accept that Sonic 2 is a classic, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a classic. A lot of people like Sonic CD. But after that, Sonic Adventure divides the critics. Sonic Adventure 2 divides the critics, and etc, etc. And Sega and Sonic Team have tried to add more and more changes to the formula, and it just doesn't seem to work. And it's therefore no coincidence that when they went back to basics with Sonic Generations, it was the best Sonic game produced in years, and everybody adored it. So Knuckles is just kind of hanging out here by himself, just like out in the open, which is kind of strange. Give him your rings, and he'll take you to another special stage. There's absolutely no difference between his and Tails stages apart from the background. We have a volcano-esque lava background here. For Tails, we have the sky. Makes sense for Tails because he can fly. Not quite sure what echidnas have to do with hot boiling lava, but there you go. And the other difference is that Knuckles stages are kind of trickier than Tails is, because they include these lines of spike balls that you can't just steer around. You have to steer around. So it's not a car, goddammit. But you can't move around them. You have to jump over them. Kind of similar to the bomb hoops in the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 special stages, which I have to feel these are kind of an homage to. You just jump over them, and it's not too difficult. I often find that jumping is the way to go here rather than steering around, although it can sometimes catch you out if there are two lines of spike balls in a row. You can jump over the first one, land directly on the second one, but you do have a certain degree of leniency with these bonus stages. And if you know what you're doing, and you've played the game before, and you know where all the rings are, and the locations of Knuckles and Tails, because they show up on each individual act once, you can actually collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds before you've completed Act 2 of World 2, the Rusty Ruin Zone. Now, quickly burning through the bonus stages is no alien concept to the Sonic franchise. Indeed, when I'm playing Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, I try and get the bonus stages out of the way as quickly as possible, by knowing where they all are. But it is kind of strange that you can get all that done and then just not have to do another bonus stage, if all goes to plan anyway, by World 3. Another thing that I do like about the bonus stages, the way they work in this game, is that you don't actually have to give Knuckles or Tails all your rings at once. You can give them some of your rings, but if you don't have enough, if you don't have up to 50, you can go back, get some more rings, and come back and get them. However, just be wary of this, because in later levels of the game, in particular the third world, Spring Stadium Zone, once you go through a gold ring of the Flickies, you can't get back. So if you're thinking of getting back to Knuckles or Tails, then sorry, too bad, you can't actually do that. Another problem I have with this game is the Flickies themselves. I mean, the Sonic franchise, as I say, is no stranger to reinventing itself, and I don't have a huge problem with the idea of going around collecting all these birds, although it does mean that the game is very slow and methodical. And that's not really what players wanted in a Sonic title. The whole point of the Sonic franchise is you go around as fast as you can, it's exhilarating, it's a thrill ride. Yes, okay, it did give rise to that very strange, very annoying meme of Sonic just hold right to win, which I don't personally agree with at all. But that's what people associate the Sonic franchise with. They associate it with high speed, high octane, Fast and Furious action. And this game just doesn't provide that. Instead, you're going around on a 2.5D perspective, collecting birds, which just isn't that riveting no matter how much you try and spin it that way. I mean, Sonic Adventure had the same pitfalls, it ran into the same pitfalls. People just didn't like the elements of the game, or the parts of the game where you weren't playing as Sonic, because it wasn't fast, although personally I do enjoy the Gamma levels quite a bit. That might put me in a minority, but I don't particularly care. So that's all the Flickies say for Act 1 and 2 then, and that means that Act 3 is just a boss fight. And for all that I've complained about these slippery controls, I actually do dig the boss fights in this game. I also did the music in this game, particularly this boss theme, and I think the Sonic team agrees with me because quite a few tracks in this game would then later be reused when they went into True 3D with Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. I can't remember the exact tracks that are reused, which is kind of embarrassing because I'm a self-professed music nerd, but it is what it is. So this boss fight is pretty easy. You're just going around avoiding Robotnik as he drops this spiked heavy ball on you, and when he comes down, you jump up and hit him. However, you have to time your jumps carefully. You have to hit him on the glass dome of his cockpit. If you just hit the metal ring, you'll just bounce off and you won't do damage. You only do damage when Robotnik flashes. Also, there are times in LPs where you watch the footage back and you cringe. That was one of them. I jumped right over Dr. Robotnik's head. And yes, I'm well aware that he's actually called Dr. Eggman now by the whole world, and not just Japan. But when this game came out in 1996, he was known as Dr. Robotnik. So that's what I have always referred to him as in the classic 2D Mega Drive games. I also like how Dr. Robotnik is taking more and more damage physically and visibly as the fight goes on. That's just a neat little graphical touch. And there we go, that's the end of Dr. Robotnik, who discovered vaping before vaping was hip, 20 years into the past. But no, for all that I rag on the controls, I think the boss fights in general are pretty well implemented. The final fight does take quite a long time, and some people find it really annoying and repetitive. I'm not one of those people. I think the boss fights are generally the highlight of this gameplay. And this game, as you can probably expect, was not that well received by the critics. One of them, Austin Shao of GameSpot, went as far as to give it a 3.5 and called it an exercise in tedium. And honestly, it's not that hard to disagree with him. The major problem I have with the game, other than the controls, is that it's very easy to get lost. I mean, I appreciate what Sonic Team and Traveler's Tales were trying to do, but it's just very easy to get lost. And if this game has some sort of map system, or I don't know, a flicky radar to tell you where the flickies were nearby, it would be a lot less repetitive and boring. It would be a better game as a result. Another thing I don't like is that the flickies have their own individual hitboxes, and this can cause you huge problems later on. Because if you avoid getting hit, but the flickies get hit, you'll hear the sound and they will basically wander off, and you have to collect them again before you can go through the gold ring and deposit the flickies. Not too much of a problem in these early stages, a huge problem when you get to World 3 and beyond. For example, Spring Stadium Dome, about 60% of the floor is covered in spikes. And I had a situation playing through this where I got hit, or my flickies got hit, went onto the spike floor, and actually took more damage trying to get them back. And if you take damage, all your flickies fly off and you have to collect them. The blue and pink flickies will sort of home in towards Sonic, so they're not too bad, but the green ones run away from you, and the red ones are the worst, because they will actively run away from you and hop up, and with these controls and this perspective, it's not an easy task to get them back. Also, showing off how you have to be very, very precise in the controls when you're spinning around like a ballet dancer. Why Sonic is spinning around like a ballet dancer? God only knows at this point. One last thing to point out then, before the video wraps up, is how strange it is that this game was co-developed by Traveler's Tales. They developed two games with Sega and Sonic Team, this and Sonic R. Sonic R was similarly criticised for its gameplay, but praised for its graphics and music. And Traveler's Tales are more famous now because they developed the Toy Story game for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, but they also developed the LEGO franchise, which has been phenomenally successful. LEGO Star Wars, LEGO Indiana Jones, basically any successful movie franchise now has a LEGO game based on it, and that game is developed by Traveler's Tales. And with that, we've come to the end of the road of Sonic 3D. So that has been week 3 of the Let's Play Apple Tower competition. I hope you enjoyed it, and join me next time to see what week 4 has in store for us. Until then, bye for now.